Okay, video number 21. Heating up. This one's all about police. Now, my brother's a cop. I got no beef with the cops. When I see cops at the restaurants and stuff like that, when they're in line with me, I buy them lunch. They're trustees, especially after you change your status, because now they're really trustees, because you're not a public servant and they're a public servant. They're the public servant and you're the beneficiary. So everything they do legally has to benefit you. And if they don't do something that benefits you specifically, it's trust fraud. It's a felony. And as per section, the ones that I told you before, those really specific ones that you need to know about to protect your rights and stuff like that. 18 USC section 241 and 18 USC section 242 involving your rights and people taking away your rights. So if a police officer decides they want to do something to you and it doesn't benefit you in some way, they're violating 18 USC section 242 and they can be imprisoned up to 1 year. Now that doesn't apply to people who are U.S. citizens. To some degree, they can kind of do whatever the fuck they want with you. This only applies to the beneficiaries, if you're in the category of a beneficiary, right? 18 USC 241, let's say 2 or more police officers or something like that are involved in some kind of a situation where your rights are taken away or injured or whatever. Or let's say, for example, that's up to 10 years. And let's say if kidnapping or aggravated sexual assault or something like that, or an attempt to kill, that can be any term of years or for life or maybe sentenced to death, the police officers. Now, again, that only has to do with if you're the beneficiary. It does not have to do with if you're categorized as a U.S. citizen and you're a public servant. So keep that in mind. Police are simply unknowing foot soldiers of UCC statutes mostly. So they're running around. Here's the derivation of the word police. Police comes from the regulation and control of a community, organized government, civil administration, policy, right? It comes from the word policy, and as we've talked about before, policy is basically statute. So the fact that they're called law enforcement. Do they police laws? Yes, but they mostly police statutes. That's why you've probably seen these court cases where they come out the other end and they say, police don't actually have any real mandate or any real responsibility to actually serve and protect. That's because police, by definition, there are constitutional police. But your normal police, which we're going to get into, normal police are basically they're private for-profit corporation known as United States hires them as a private police security force for their policies and statutes. So they're not really they actually don't have any real. They don't need to serve and protect you at all. There is nothing, especially if you're filed as a U.S. citizen or a public servant. There's nothing at all that makes them legally liable for anything. If you are filed as a beneficiary, it's a little better, but technically still they are a private police force. They are a security force for a private for-profit corporation known as United States. So if you want to know what the real de jure police is, which is something I go into in this, it's the sheriff's office, and the U.S. Marshal's Service. So when you meet a U.S. Marshal, you're meeting a de jure, most likely, de jure, by law, actual, true, honest-to-God law enforcement agent. And the original term that was used for those kind of people that are de jure is peace officer. So if they're a peace officer, that's the real deal, right? Now, the real deal is they're still a trustee and you're still the beneficiary as a state national, in the de jure level. So they still have to only do things that benefit you. Now, when a police officer, like in the old movies and stuff like that, you see the police officer or the sheriff, and he comes up and he's like, "Hey guys, what's going on now?" And they're fighting and arguing. And he says, "Now let's just calm it down, there, boys." Like the old Wild West and stuff like that, or things are real hot and heavy, and they have to go out back and shoot each other and do a draw, and the sheriff's like, rolling his eyes and lets it happen. Boys will be boys, kind of thing. Now that's a good sheriff. The sheriff he's essentially saying, I'm the trustee and you guys are the beneficiary. I'm going to try to do what I can to de-escalate whatever I can and help the people of the town as best as I can in any way that I can. But I'm not going to just grab people and just start throwing them in, jail or trying to create revenue for a private for-profit corporation and stuff like that. So, and then there's a real bad guy. And the sheriff goes out and gets the bad guy and puts him in the little two jail cells that he has in his little office. That's back when common law was the real deal. If we had common law now, we would have these very small little prisons filled with people that are violating common law, and you wouldn't really have that many people in prison. Because if you violated, let's say, contracts and you fuck somebody over with your contracts, the way a common law court would operate is they would just have you repair the damage done above and beyond whatever. So if you shysted somebody for $20,000, the common law court would say, okay, $20,000, but we're going to double it just to like really slap you around a bit and just to pay for the person's emotional suffering or whatever. And then they would owe $40,000, and then they would have to pay that back. And they wouldn't necessarily have to go to prison, something like that. That's what a common law court would really sort out. That's called an equity court, right? Like equity meaning you've created a situation where there's two different positions now, and you've lowered someone else's position and tried to increase your own. Equity is to bring things back into balance, and that's the whole point of common law and a common law court. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. The du jour is coming, my friend. The du jour is coming, and the people who are at the forefront of it are going to be wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. So if this is something you want to help put together, no matter what profession you're doing right now, I'm sure there's some way that a lot of this information can plug into what you're doing, and you can make a whole lot more money than you're making now, my friend. The ushering of the du jour is coming very, very soon. So basically... fighting and arguing with anybody, it's stupid. Arguing actually gives them jurisdiction. It proves that there is something to argue about when there isn't. There isn't anything to argue. If there's no jurisdiction, there's nothing to argue about. And there isn't any jurisdiction, so there's nothing to argue about. To handle the police is very simple. You simply be genuinely kind, knowing they're stuck in the same trap you are. Let's say, for example, you're in a traffic stop. They offer for you to sign a ticket. The definition of a ticket is a contractual agreement to show up at court. That's all it is. It's got nothing to do with money. I mean, obviously they want revenue, so they're trying to make money for the private for-profit corporation that they work for. That's why it's called revenue. But still, regardless, that's not really what it is. It's a contractual agreement to show up at court. Very simple. You say, and what happens if I don't sign it? Say this with curiosity and kindness. They might tell you they'll arrest you if you don't. Then just sign the ticket like this: without prejudice, signed under threat and duress. Human name Brandon-Joe Williams, beneficiary. You have now reserved your rights, identified as a human, identified that you are the beneficiary, and they are the trustee in a trust action, and also defined that you are under duress to sign. Handle them with kindness, make them do their job. The ticket is dead at that point. So the way in which you sign the ticket can automatically vitiate the contract since immediately. So the contract actually never even went into action. The contract was basically instantaneously nulled out. That's how you do that. Okay. Even if you do get forced into a court, who cares? Who cares if they suspend your license? Once you get your passport, you don't need one unless you're doing straight commerce like driving a taxi or a big rig. So who cares? The secret is knowing that they are fucked. They have no power. So they don't, you can just simply tell police officers, if you want to, as per your Fifth Amendment rights, I don't answer questions. Well, blah, 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 blah. No, I don't answer questions. You know, or you can ask them the questions. That's also a good thing too. You know, am I under any legal obligation to answer any of your questions, or has my Fifth Amendment right to not answer questions been abrogated in any way that you know of? No. I mean, you know, or they might lie to you. I don't know. They might say anything. But you can ask them these kinds of questions. It's a rhetorical question. You already know the answer to the question. So you're not asking them because you actually need an answer. You're just asking them out of being rhetorical and just for the sake of asking them a question. You know, they say, you know how fast you were driving? I don't answer questions. So it's up to you. And like on the James C. Lovett website, you have the right to travel binder. You can print all that shit out, put it in a binder, put it in your car. I don't answer questions, you know. And then if they have any questions, you know, I have a right to travel binder. This is all the case law and all the laws involving everything that I'm doing and everything that I have, you know, the right to do. You know, another thing you can ask the officer is say, you know, do you have any evidence or do you have any reason to believe that I am at this exact moment in time driving this vehicle for the purposes of commerce? That's the other thing too. That's another way of asking them, what makes you think you have jurisdiction? Because if you're traveling, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm traveling in my private automobile, and they get kind of argumentative. Not as effective. Because like I say in this thing, all they have to do is just turn their little camera off and beat the fuck out of you. Doesn't matter. But when you ask a question, it's quite a bit more interesting. Rather than saying, you don't have jurisdiction over me, you say something more like, what do you see, or what do you hear, or what idea do you have that gives you the tip off or the idea that I'm involved in commerce at this exact moment? And if they say, well, nothing, you can say, well, then if I'm not involved in commerce, are you abrogating my ability to travel, my right to travel in my private automobile as per, remember that one I told you, the first one, 18 USC 1545, right? Now, you need to have a passport to pull that one off, though. You can't use a driver's license. Driver's license is for all, basically, when you hand the cop a driver's license, you're saying, in that moment, when you hand him the driver's license, you're saying, I'm involved in commerce, and here's my license to practice commerce on the road in my motor vehicle, which is a different term than automobile. So once you get your passport, now you're handing him something that says, I'm traveling in my private automobile for non-commercial purposes. If you hand him a driver's license, you're saying, here's my commercial permit for my current commercial activities. So you can't hand the cop a driver's license and then say, what kind of do you have any reason to believe that I'm currently involved in commerce? Because if he knows anything about the law, he'll say, well, yeah, you dumb fuck, you just handed me a driver's license. So 18 USC 1545 applies for passports. Passports is what allows you to travel privately. You are no longer in the public arena. You are no longer in their jurisdiction. You're no longer having anything to do with them at all whatsoever. So that's why the passport's so important. And that's why you need to understand this. And when you hand them a driver's license, that's pretty bad. The only thing you can really do in that situation is just the way that I described signing the paper. You can ask them what makes you think that you have jurisdiction and blah, blah, blah. Out of curiosity, they might say you handed me a driver's license. So if they say that, I wouldn't say anything. You don't want to incriminate yourself. I wouldn't say anything. Don't react to it. Yeah, you got me or something like that. But if they do say you handed me a driver's license, you stupid fuck. Yeah, that's true. That is actually true. So, police have a gold fringe Admiralty martial law flag on their uniform. We are going to be getting into flags soon on this course. They don't even know it's there. They don't know what it means. They are good people. They are lost in the same system you are. They know something is up with this country, and our police and our military will defend us if things get too bad. They are good people with good intentions, and you should actually offer books to the ones that confront you. You should go to their precinct and offer books for them and additional books for their friends that are there that want to learn. These people are some of the greatest allies you can have as a foreign ambassador, because you are a foreign ambassador to the private for-profit corporation known as the United States. You are a foreign ambassador to the foreign for-profit corporation known as State of California. You are a foreign ambassador to the foreign for-profit corporation known as City of Los Angeles. And your job is to represent the land of which you are a state citizen for. You are a foreign ambassador of California, of Nevada, of Utah, of Texas. When you come from Texas, you wear your big fucking, your big belt buckle, and you got your cowboy hat, and you represent old school values. You represent the state of Texas. You are a foreign ambassador of your state, of your area, right? If you come from Idaho, I think is the number one Mormon area. You represent, if you're Mormon and you're from Idaho, you represent Mormon values. You represent Idaho as a foreign ambassador from Idaho. If you're from California, chances are you're insane. So you represent California when you leave California. I'm just kidding. California has a lot of great people in it. I'm here, for fuck's sake. So, in Indiana's like farms, like old school values, like really, really pretty friendly. Family is a big thing in Indiana. Florida, especially now with all the political stuff, that they're big on freedoms, personal freedoms, stuff like that, even though none of that matters, but it's still cool. I'm not going to diss it. It's still cool. In New York, that symbolizes like productivity, enterprise, so wherever you're coming from, and you don't have to represent the state that you're coming from because out of an obligation, but you are becoming a foreign ambassador for the original de jure land that you live in as a sojourn temporarily, as a nomad, basically, right? True constitutional police is your county sheriff. So if you're ever in an altercation with a policy officer and you see that it's getting bad, simply say you're going to call the county sheriff and have him come to the scene to help. Sheriffs are awesome, and like U.S. Marshals, are true American law enforcement. Your sheriff will protect you from bad policing. If you have a small town or something like that and you can access the sheriff is generally put in through voting. I would find out, because the thing is that, voting pulls you into the system, but it might not for the local sheriff. It depends if the sheriff is a sheriff for a for-profit corporation or an unincorporated sector. If it's an unincorporated sector, you can get involved in that voting process most likely without contracting yourself into the system. So, meet the sheriff, talk to the sheriff. You can talk to him about all this kind of stuff, the de jure versus the de facto. He might not understand those terms. So you can ask him, where are you in relation to common law? And do we have a grand jury? And, what's the situation of, is the city incorporated? Is the county incorporated? If I have a problem with a police officer, can I call you on a common law level to assist me? How can I assist you? Do you need, food drives for the police, for the sheriff's office? Sheriffs are usually pretty fucking cool, man. I mean, even during COVID, the Los Angeles sheriff, he was saying I'm not going to be policing mask laws, and people have a right to do what they want. And he's under tremendous pressure. Oh my God, the political pressure. So sheriffs are generally speaking, they're from the ones that I've seen and stuff, they're usually really, really dope. They're usually kind of, they kind of know about some of this stuff a little bit. They don't really know exactly how to handle it. They would love some assistance. They would love some help. and they're great guys. There's really no reason to create enemies with the sheriff. The sheriff is probably the sheriff has the highest jurisdiction on the planet. So every time you see like the FBI come in or the CIA come in or any of the other organizations, they can only gain jurisdiction over the area by intimidating the sheriff, and then the sheriff has to willingly, it's not really willingly, but has to willingly give the jurisdiction over to these government organizations. Even the very, very tippy top of the entire federal government has to get willing jurisdiction from the sheriff. The sheriff is the god of his zone. So befriending the sheriff and helping the sheriff and assisting the sheriff in all of this is a really cool thing. Highly recommended, especially for small towns. I have reached out to the sheriff office a couple times. I haven't received a response. It was like these dumb emails that I had sent. So at some point in time, I would like to go and meet the Los Angeles sheriff and speak to him more about all this. So that's probably going to happen at some point in time as well. You need to always be creating friends and delivering value to others. Otherwise, you jeopardize their survival of your world. By reading this post and watching these videos, you are becoming the trustee, and you are now in a fiduciary trust with the people you encounter, and they are the beneficiaries. Again, it's your choice. You aren't forced to become a trustee. That is illegal. That is kidnapping. That is trust fraud. So you're not forced to become a fiduciary trust, but ideally, you decide that you want to willingly step into the position of power, becoming a fiduciary trust with the people you encounter, and they now become the beneficiaries of your position of power. The police, when they pull you over, need to be benefited by you educating them and being kind and polite, by you benefiting them, but demanding they benefit you is to enter into the trust of God and is the proper and legal way God intended human interaction to be in his image. Okay? We've all been lied to. The police joined the force because they wanted to help. They have also been lied to. Educate and help them. The tickets they are giving you is nothing more than offered contracts to be in court. They don't give fines. They only offer contracts. Those contracts can be refused and destroyed with literally no effort. You defang them entirely when you know this, but nothing is stopping them from turning off their camera and beating the shit out of you for being terribly disrespectful. If I was a cop and I was being treated like utter garbage, I would probably turn off my camera and beat the shit out of you too. If police truly knew what was going on and how they are literally just generating corporate revenue, mostly they would quit. I know a bunch of cops that have learned about some of this stuff and they quit. And it's painful. They go through all this. They've got families and shit. And now they have to fucking walk away. That sucks, dude. You know? So it's like they didn't know. They thought they were getting involved in something good. And then they realize that the whole system's totally fucked. I mean, to wake up to that, it's pretty grim, man. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind that you know, it's really, really tough for a police officer to swallow the truth of the situation, because to swallow the truth of the information makes their entire existence pointless and worthless. And that's not fun. That's not a fun pill to swallow. Okay. They do also apply and protect common law, and for that they are appreciated. If you remove statutory law and the private corporate aspect of their job, they would instantaneously be fantastically supported. Like the old school common law sheriff that you see in the old Western movies. I mean, he was dope. I mean, people didn't hate the sheriff. Hey, sheriff, how's it going? Hey, sheriff, good to see you. Even the criminals were cool with the sheriff because the sheriff respected even their rights. So, you know, that's the situation, okay? If any cops are reading this, then if you divided all the revenue taken in from traffic citations nationally, you'd be, and divided it by each individual officer, it would be around $137,000 a year. You're getting shafted. If you're going to play this game, at least do it right. Make your superior's life a living hell until you get a decent cut. Ha 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 ha. You can even use this information in this write-up to leverage yourself some better pay. So, you know, if you were reading this and you were a police officer, you can, you're basically becoming a sheriff, because if you were to go somewhere, and I've seen this, there's a guy in, I think, New Mexico that had this whole campaign about how he was going to bring back common law and all this. And it's like the public love this shit because they want this. Your typical person loves this shit and they want it. So if you were to take all this information as a police officer and you were to say, you know what, I'm going to take all this and I'm going to run and I'm going to campaign for sheriff somewhere in some county. If you campaign for sheriff and you take all this information and you build a campaign out of it, I can pretty much guarantee you'll win. Guarantee. You could know nothing about politics. You could know nothing about anything. You could have a very small budget, almost nothing. You could do flyers practically. Put this information together, talk about bringing back common law. Boy, especially in a red state. I mean, you would win your county's election for sheriff like it was taking fucking candy from a fucking baby. It'd be so fucking easy. So fucking easy. So, you know, if I was in a county and I heard about a police officer talking about some of this stuff, and you make a little flyer and just say, hey, you know, statute, what is law? What is statute? And then how can I create a better world with, common law, right? And you'd have a lot less police. That's why you see in the old westerns, you see very few officers because they're not out there writing tickets. You know what I mean? You have the, I mean, in a lot of the old movies and stuff like that, I'm assuming that's probably the way it was. You have the sheriff and you have the deputy, and that's it. Now, if it was just the sheriff and the deputy, and it was a de jure sheriff system, which, like I said, I can pretty much guarantee you'd win any county you attempted to go into as a sheriff for that. You don't need all these beat cops everywhere. I mean, you can just kind of support people to be, legal firearm owners and support people to kind of do their own thing. And you can do some firearm training seminar for the local public so that they can learn how to use their own firearms. And you can kind of instill in the local public more of a self-sustaining policing type of activity, right? And you can do some cool things with the public and stuff like that. But you need a much smaller force. And then that justifies a very large paycheck for yourself and your deputies. So basically you're cutting out, maybe 50 or 60% of your police force, but you as the sheriff, I mean, I would personally consider it justifiable that someone who was doing something like that in my county, I would want them to make a absolutely asinine amount of money. I would approve $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 yearly salaries for someone like that. So you can even make it as part of your campaign. How all that would get funded and how all that would work, I don't really know exactly, but I'm just thinking in my head. When you get that kind of support from the public, they might be willing to fund you out of their own pocket, for Christ's sake. I don't know. So my point is, again, the de jure is coming. Do you want to be on the front end and make shitloads of money and make lots of friends and usher in the de jure, glorious, beautiful fucking new American government? Or do you want to continue to be in the de facto? It's up to you. I'm not telling you what to do. The bottom line is that, again, the people on the front end of this are going to be live lives of extreme, fun and enjoyment, and the people who don't are going to get left behind. So there you go. That's video number 21. I think that's all I have to say about that. And again, U.S. Marshals, sheriff's offices, de jure government, de jure peace officers, and true, honest to God law enforcement, common law enforcement, super dope, super supported. And then everything else is kind of like a bit of a shame. And if we could just move the system over again, it just all comes down to that trustee beneficiary relationship statute and revenue that violates the trustee beneficiary relationship. Whereas the old school common law sheriff's office and the U.S. Marshal's office and the original de jure, it keeps that trustee beneficiary relationship together, and it makes for a wonderful civil experience. So there you go, and I'll see you guys at video number 22. Bye-bye.